If you can, like, retweet it, that would be absolutely amazing, so we get as many people as possible watching. Okay, super. So we are live. Thanks everybody so much for taking the time and for joining. It's great to have the take two of the Hicket, nunc, and Friends stream. I know it's been a bit of an important week for the platform, since you kind of like hit a very important milestone with more than 10,000. I'm sure it's much more than that now. I think I heard somebody say it was almost 15,000 by the time I tweeted already. So I'm sure it's even more than that now. But yeah, I think I'll let kind of Rafael introduce and speak a little bit about what's going on and what's new in the platform, and then we can start the conversation from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nicole, and everyone for being here and following up this week. Yeah, so this week we had many experiments. Actually, there were some interactive NIFIDs last week with SVG, and now there are this implementation of HTML's NIFIDs, which would allow also other interactions with NIFID NFTs. So there are some experimental NFTs going on, and it would be an interesting topic for us to keep experimenting and researching. And so this week we had like two festivals, and Sutu, I believe, shared like one object today, one NFT that was like about these milestones things, like 10K, like 100K, and who knows where it ends. So there are many scalability things that we could think as a community. Um, so we had a festival this week. It was called Pupila Dilatada, and there were many Brazilian artists and a really independent effort of artists organizing themselves and publishing. And it's an interesting thing to observe, like how this method, this organization method, works until it becomes like an asset, right? So, but I don't know, the organization process. It is maybe a perceptual thing. Just joking, you know. How we gather information and how to transmit this information is still an important thing, like for us to try to organize, like which informations we want to transmit and how to affect people, So maybe we could share some images and some works from Pila Dilatada, and talk about objects for objects that is happening this week, and maybe possible other projects that we could experiment with uh, with experimental NFTs, and with these collective organizations around like NFT studios. And there are many possible, like there are independent studios, right, which work with media and new media. But
Content.
yes, there are many actually concerns in this. I believe this organization aspect is important. Maybe it goes even back to that ecological concern that drove everything. So maybe something important for us to also have in mind, for us to keep developing. Like there are many things indeed to think. Like digital labor, right? It is affected. It is a complex theme around this exchange of values between artists. And but yes, if someone could share like the presentations, or would like to add something.
We are sharing the screen here. I don't know if it's working.
Are you seeing the screen of
Yeah.
Pupila Dilatada?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Yes, so
Pupila Dilatada.
it was organized by Rodrigo and Thais. Thais is also organizing object for object swap, and I let you.
Hello, guys. I'm Kosha, and Thais is here with me. She's my sister, and we organized the Pupila Dilatada Psychedelic Crypt Art Show. I'm with Rafael since not the beginning of the site, but since January, and we were thinking about how to create the Hickett Nunc website and NFTs, and we're talking about like making independent art shows. And I'm not a programmer, neither a web designer, and I was thinking about like how can artists make this kind of stuff and sell those NFTs and curate like the web space with like individually or collective groups, like. And I was talking about this with some Brazilian artists here, and we came with the idea to make this like experimental art show. And it was like I I I thought that it was be a good idea if I do it like if I could do it by myself. Like if anyone wants to help me with the web design or something like that, I could do it by myself. So I went to this website called hotglue.me. It's a really easy website of like a website that makes websites. And I tested some stuff, and we make it this really simple template that you can click on the name of the artist, and it goes to his main link, like his main website. And if you want to buy it, the NFT, you can press on collect, and it goes directly to the NFT on Hickett Nunc. There you can buy it, like. And it was awesome. Like I was talking with some artists, and like they were talking with each other, and like in the day I was putting the artworks on the website, it was crazy. Like everybody want to come together, and there's room for one more, and then we had like more than 40 artists on the show with this psychedelic team. And I just loved the process of doing it. Like I met a lot of artists that I didn't even know, and they made like collaborations with each other. They met with each other. Some artists sold their art for the first time in NFT on this art show. And like here for in Brazil, it's really hard to make money with art. And uh, and, and I was very happy to be a person that was helping people making money and meet each other and know another artist, like make this movement. And Thais make the object for object with Amelie. And okay, Thais will talk it. Sorry.
So, just a second. I will introduce myself. I'm Thais, and I'm an artist from Brasília, Brazil. And together with Amelie, she created and then invited me the Diverse NFT Art Twitter, which is an account that we want to be like a reference and also create some kind of community for women, LGBTQAI+, BIPOC artists, because we see that these kind of artists and people in general don't have as much visibility as like white and male artists. So we find that very important. And we came up with the idea of the campaign Objects for Objects, thinking about how could we like create a sense of community and that artists could swap with each other their creations. And it is like without the money barrier, because we ask everyone to meet for free. And today is the second day, tomorrow will be the last day, and it's been like really crazy about how many people were sharing their objects and joining the campaign with us. And like we see the graph of how many transactions there were in Teso's blockchain. It's like a huge peak from yesterday, and maybe today will keep like being higher and higher, the number. And it's also been like crazy on Twitter. Everyone is sharing, and we are happy that we could.
Would it be possible to share some of the images from the feed? Awesome.
Oh yeah, sure.
There is some people from which they are doing some data analytics with R, right? With that statistical language for programming, like, and they are doing some live graphs of the platform of the protocol, like how the users are like interacting. There is indeed an important accessibility thing on like how to provoke, I believe, right, the imagination of people. Like there are some works that indeed have a sort of pedagogical concern, I believe. This also this value thing is something that one should think pedagogically, despite FOMO, like how crypto art can contribute, to your process of invention, of creation, like, how it can contribute to your creativity. So the development of the platform, like the formats that we are supporting, it is something that's important for us to keep available some possibilities, like how to make, of course, swaps. You make a connection between profiles, right, when you swap, so you can navigate the platform. But of course there are like other media possibilities, like
I'm just looking for the graph image because I don't know exactly where to find it. I didn't save it, but maybe it will show up soon.
But there is a lot of artwork for object
here.
for object. Oh, there is.
And there were also like more than 500 tweets with the hashtag, and over like 500,000 people were reached with these tweets. So we are like really proud of what we've made, and hopefully there will be like more great projects in the future also.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about the Hicat nunc platform, that unlike any other platform out there, unless there are a lot I don't know about, of course, but that it allows for these kinds of initiatives. I haven't seen it anywhere else, where you have these kind of artist-initiated initiatives that actually grow bigger than the platform itself, and also the fact that people are making tools outside of the platform to access it and to do all kinds of things with it, means that it's even in its philosophy, it will never be centralized. It is a very open initiative, and the feeling I have with Hicat nunc this time is I haven't felt this in the digital art community in years, to be honest. This kind of openness and this kind of creativity and meta creativity.
Yeah, if I can just add into that, is that something I find quite strange with these, platforms that we see on Ethereum right now, Rarible, Foundation, stuff like that, is that it seems very centralized platforms actually, in the sense that there is like a singular entity that acts as a gatekeeper. And of course, it's very simple to solve the problem of all the issues that we're dealing with copy minters, and stuff, like content that where we have to take a lot of like community decisions, like, is this content that we should accept? Is where does the line draw? Where do we draw the line where someone is copying or where someone is like remixing an artwork? And how do we state, how does I as an artist state that I want this work to be remixed? But it's very interesting to witness such a like actually decentralized community, in a sense, take these ponder these questions collectively and try to reach some sort of consensus, because I don't really see that in these big platforms. And I mean, in a sense, I think that what we see in the Ethereum community with places like Rarible is that it's like big corporations that are kind of behind it, actually, big software production studios.
That was one of the things that actually attracted me to the platform, was the fact that I didn't have to create one video of myself introducing myself to someone. And one of the things that I found interesting in Rarible was that they said you can record a video in whatever language you're comfortable with. I was like, do they have a translator for each language? What's the deal? So the fact that there's no like no gatekeeping is one of the facts that interests me to join this community. And then the fact that everybody is very open and collaborative, both in features that we're thinking about releasing. Like we have open conversations everywhere in GitHub, on Discord, on Twitter, and it's interesting to see how things evolve in a collaborative manner, where even though it started with Raphael's vision, I think like now it's getting shape of its own, and it's just being driven by artists and collaborators, and it's like super interesting to me.
Yeah, hello. I wanted to say something. Yeah, I'm doing digital generative art since 1995. And I'm so grateful for Hic and Nunc now. I wished this platform had existed like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. For me, it was really, the internet was a place to show my art without having to go to a gallery, without having to present to an important gallery my work, and they say, no, we don't use you, we don't like you, or whatever. So it was like I could put artworks out there, and people could just look at it and like it or not, whatever. and so for me, this was the only way to present my work, basically. And but of course, I couldn't earn any money with it, because if everyone can download it, and people would not get the idea that the artists need some support. And so with Hic and Nunc, I'm so happy that this is happening right now. I waited long enough. Thank you.
Yes, there are many questions like for us to experiment. Indeed, thank you all for the inspirations for it. This thing about mixing content for creation, for creative matter, maybe it's indeed an interesting one. I don't know, because these discussions are actually right. I don't know. The blockchain power a lot of indeed decisions when you mint NFT. Like there is a power of expressing yourself indeed. So there are many possibilities how to manage those assets, but the indeed, for example, with artificial intelligence or with video manipulation, like we distort something and create something new. There are many aspects, I don't know, that were discussed before, probably, like as creative methods, but these are some things that we might also would be interesting indeed to share along the way, you know.
Well, one thing that would be interesting that hasn't been implemented anywhere is in crypto art. We are quite strong in the so-called remix culture, which can be quite delicate and a subtle balance between ripping off somebody's work or doing something generally interesting with it. What a platform like Hit and Nunc could add is the ability to actually encode the fact that you have used somebody else's material creating your work. So you're creating a kind of chain of influences, which in the short term is quite interesting, but in the long term would be an amazing thing to have. So that's one of the meta concepts. Unfortunately, I don't have any kind of development skills which has nothing to do with medical radiation, which we don't have any use of here. And I'm not that good in this kind of development, but this would definitely be something I would try to get in there somewhere, is chains of acknowledgement or something like that.
There's actually a conversation that started recently about licensing and credit attribution when you're like doing interactive NFTs, because it's kind of down to interpretation if you're ripping someone else's art or if you're reinventing it, creating something new, like almost taking feedback from the previous artists, creating something new and putting it out there. And it's very hard to, I think, to me, to define what constitutes like copyright infringement, what it's a blatant copy, or what it's innovation. So we kind of kickstarted a conversation on GitHub that I invite anyone to join in and chime in, because I agree with you. I think it's important at some point to have some kind of credit attribution. But I think it needs to be a kind of a conversation on how that can work in a platform like ours. And because it's subjective, like how do we enforce rules and stuff like that? So it's a very delicate, not delicate, as in it's hard to define, boundaries, I think.
Yes, but Andre, do you think that the platform has to impose rules? Because what we are now seeing working is that the platform offers opportunities and the artists are creating communities where these rules are kind of dynamically evolving without this decentralized enforcement.
Yeah, I don't think we need to enforce rules, but we can have like a best practice kind of guide. Like, so if, for example, if I'm using someone else's library to do a 3D art, should I mention them? Even though it's open source, stuff like that. And we shouldn't be policing anything, but there's always like lots of people online that come, hey, somebody else is minting my art. We need to provide ways of taking that down, and we've kind of implemented some simple ban system for addresses or specific tokens, which goes against like the concept of decentralization. But in order to respect the artist's art, there needs to be it needs to be a balance between letting people do what they want to do,
it's
and also
impossible to control, actually.
Yeah.
It would be possible to control. The problem is that we can't connect every chain to each other so that we can have like a unique hash for every artwork. And furthermore, it would be like, almost impossible to design. But in theory, it would be possible. But in practice, yes. But what would work is, I mean, of course, these licenses where you say like, I'm fine if you just if you take my work and do whatever you want with it. I think there was early on there was one of the earliest NFTs I minted was something like just a Twitter screenshot where someone said like, I don't get NFTs. You can just take a screenshot of it or something. And then I took a screenshot of that and minted it. And then I said to people like, take a screenshot of this NFT and remix that screenshot and just keep screenshotting and making NFTs out of it. So
I feel we're now more talking about a subtractive method, a way of getting things off the platform that are violating certain rules. But what I'm more talking about is an additive approach where the artist himself can say, these are my influences, this is what I build on, not something that so it's a kind of, because now there is no mechanism except tags and fleeting tweets that this is based on somebody else's work. So it's more that aspect I'm talking about, this additive constructive approach where you enable people to give this chain.
I think you're always building up on someone else's work, always, no matter what you do. If you start making art, then you have listened to certain music, you have watched certain movies, they all influence you, and that makes up you, and this you is then creating art, and you're never alone, you're never isolated. And yeah, I think so whenever you feel you owe someone something, then you should be able, you can already do it right now. You can just write it in the description of your artwork. I know.
But I think what Frederick has in mind is really like you could actually have then almost like a genealogy of works where you can then see them, and you can even like over time follow kind of developments of maybe some inspirations or a new style or some new underlying whatever library or so. And it's really just more an add-on of information which could be a nice tool for art historians, or also a discovery tool, right? Like somebody, and in the end, yeah, it's really just a kind of a meta information, which if there was a way to easily add it, then people would use it. I think it's always also just like having ease of use to allow this, then it might grow. Just don't know how hard. Sorry.
I think there was something like this. Some artists made something like the artwork chain or something that where it was basically like, okay, this is the next artist who's gonna like take this piece and put it somewhere in the next piece. And that would have been a perfect example of like to establish an actual on-chain trace of like, okay, this piece is built on that piece, which is built on that piece. You could get all of these nice discoverability features out of it.
But we got a comment that actually adds something which is quite easy for me to forget. Actually, it's also a question whether it's RT2 that says this. It's also a question whether the attribute of the attributee would agree in being mentioned, because if we have such a mechanism, we can refer to other people's work without them agreeing to it, and this could easily turn into a creative tool of harassment again, unfortunately. So there are always some difficulties which I actually did not consider.
Yes, like there are some NFT licenses that are being discussed in the Web3 space, but it is indeed some documentations that we could like also work on. But sometimes it is a bit of a code of conduct, because some questioning like questions regarding rights of like property rights in media is really difficult. Like since start, it was not solved, you know. But like in blockchain, I don't know, there are possibilities, I don't know, so for you to indeed aggregate assets, and I don't know, assets from you collected another asset, and you can mix it maybe with you know, an NFT can reference to another NFT, like you were mentioning. This was something actually that also the interactive code community was commenting about. for you to display, you know, another NFT in a from. So yeah, so this is there are some legal and some creative and some technological questions that they encounter each other, right, in this place. But maybe it would be interesting for us to maybe develop some lines of research on these topics, like collaborative, so people can bring some references about it, and I would find it really interesting to discuss these topics, like for us to keep discussing these topics like that, like some lines of like how the interactive code community think this point and how we can experiment with it creatively, you know, and also other paths of research, like how to make it more diverse and transmit this knowledge for you know, how to transmit this also these discussions for more people, and how
Speaking
to
of
transmit
that,
this creative message.
sorry. I was also hoping to get some very concrete answers today, like about general development strategy. And well, for example, who of you is actually working on the HTML part and who's working on the smart contract? And like, I don't know, I would really like to put faces to it. And also maybe you can say, like if somebody else would like to help, like how that would work or what needs to be done. So I'm really curious because one more thing, it's
Yes,
such a
so
decentralized. It feels so decentralized, the development. I don't know, like how many people are. Is this everybody who's currently actively working, or are there more? So
They're more.
good, yeah.
They're way more, and it's what something I noticed this week was that something that offloads some of Raphael's work is just to download for us who are a bit development savvy, download the current state of the code and test it, so that like there's actually a bit more coverage before we make another release, so that there isn't some you know, and this is common in a like boring but corporate setting, that you actually have some people try out the next iteration of the code, and that made the nice release that we didn't have to roll back, that is out right now, which was also quite a hairy release because it was the one that has this new type of interactive HTML folder upload where you can put all your assets in it. That was really Daniel Massey's work, who is not here with us today, but he put in a lot of work making that happen, and we put in a lot of late night hours trying to reverse engineer some stuff in order to make it work. But yeah, he put in a huge effort there. Yeah.
yes, there are some smart contracts that we need to implement still. So I believe that like interactions with the blockchain, from the app, they are all implemented. So this is also a good reference if you want to make a parallel the app, you know. So, but yes, the best way to contribute would be to download it, the source code, and go to the GitHub. And as we are in a sort of stable version, we expect like we won't do like a release during the weekend, you know. But like at the beginning of this week, we are going to release possibly the secondary market, and it will be just like the the basic like the HDAO, which is the decentralized autonomous feed. It is also live, so people can have a feeling of how it is the basic structure. And I believe that from this, as it is stable, we could try to make some UI experiments from it, you know. So some creative experiments are welcome in this phase, in this sense. The visualization are pretty good actually from the assets, so it was a nice job indeed from Andre, from Vector and all, on the visualization of interactive snippets. It is indeed something that we must keep researching and debugging, but there are other aspects also for us to think and to develop related to the user interface, to be intuitive, some simple interactions and like
May I ask quickly, because you're just talking about kind of accessibility. So let's say this Spartanic, no explanation principle of the site. Is that kind of like something that's close to your heart? Because I guess, Raphael, that was because I mean, there are some things where a rollover or just a better explanation would definitely probably reduce 80% of confusion. So the question is like, are we maintaining this as a style, or is it just something we didn't get to yet to do?
Oh, actually, it is something absolutely like there is no like the documentation, the basic infrastructure, like the functioning of the app is public, so that is the basic logic. But adding information to it, as for example, frequently asked questions or tutorials, it is something that, for example, a disclaimer when people are uploading data on for minting NFT, like you can set rules for it, but a disclaimer about some principles for the person to have in mind when it is absolutely something that I find important for us to add. And contributions in this sense are
if I can sort of build on top of Mario's question, is in the same way that maybe the way to contribute to the code is to download the repository and test it. Is there a concrete way that we could usefully contribute to the design? Because I can code, but I probably can't debug the site. But I can do UX, so I'd be happy to contribute feedback or even modules for that. But that's also related to Mario's question, like how far are we supposed to stray if we do that in our propositions from the current design? And even if we stick to the current design, I think there's a lot that could be done in terms of usability that would be really helpful, such as, for example, in the grid view on your collection, seeing which pieces are sold or not. Yes, see, that would be great. When a piece is not for sale, it would be nice to see for how much it sold. I think that would be helpful. When you're looking at an artwork, it would be nice to see other artworks from the same artist, maybe. Things like that would help discoverability, and that can be discussed. Like some of it might be too much, but that's the question. Like, what's the avenue or what's the venue? Sorry for discussing this and for making sharing ideas regarding UX and UI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's as long as we don't make it into rarible, I think we're good.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that way. Definitely not. I mean, the minimalism is great. It really works. As I love it. It works super well for some of my more minimalist pieces as well. But yeah, I think you can keep the minimalism and still have the usability be a lot better.
Yeah, sure. I think so too, and I think but what I really like about the kind of design pattern, if you can call it that, going on, is that it gives an absolutely clear showcase of the work. Like, there isn't a UI, there isn't this type of design that is like coming from an app developer background. Is like the content isn't really important. It's just like a lot of UX that is like just stimulating your dopamine levels from just scrolling, and the actual thing that you're actually consuming is not at the center of the user experience in a way. And I guess that's what a lot of
artists, I think all artists will agree that content first is a good approach. But yeah, I think we can still respect that vision and really improve the usability, more the UX side than the UI. You know, I'm not talking about gradients everywhere and drop shadows and stuff like that. I don't think that would work for Hic et Nunc.
If I can comment on one idea that was said, like if you look at the work of an artist, that you can see the work of another artist, you can see the other works of that artist. I personally don't like that to be on the page where my one piece is, because it's about that piece, not about everything. And you are one click removed from seeing all the works of that artist. So it is in there. So it's not, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I think it's quite important to have this single piece centric approach.
So I think it reminds me a lot on the 1995 interfaces, and I don't know. I have with some of my really old works, I never said what the button does, and I wanted the users to figure it out, and I wanted the user to force the user basically to think about what it does and try it out. Just try it out and see what happens. And I think this is a little bit the same approach, and I really like it, because I think it forces people not just to scroll through and consume, but also take the time to figure out what's going on. And I think this is really that makes Hic et Nunc really nice, for me at least. So that you actually have to sit down and take time and invest a little bit also, not just consume.
I'm kind of mixed in the middle between Rafael's suggestion, because there are some things that we make available that maybe shouldn't be available. Like, should we display the cancel tab if you haven't curated or swapped your piece yet? So little details like that might help to make it less confusing, and we don't necessarily need to add like lots of text everywhere saying, oh, if you press this, then this will happen. I think it's, if I got Rafael's point across, is that little details like this that maybe shouldn't be available in certain phases, from minting to selling an NFT. So I personally struggle a little bit with some parts of the UX. That's the main motivation for me to start contributing to the platform. Like I joined one day, I was super confused, and then the next day I went on Discord and I was like, hey, I'm a developer, I can help doing bits on the website. And then that's how a conversation with Rafael started. The thing is, like, I don't think I'm a developer, right? I don't know. I don't have much sensibilities about design. What looks well. Everybody has their own taste, but I cannot tell you, oh, this font needs to be like this because of that. So maybe somebody with those type of attention to details should have a look and not change it, but make it like better a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, and bring back sync. I want my sync.
I mean, just log out. Then you get it back.
No, it has to be back. I mean, there's another platform on Tezos chain, and I'm almost going there because I'm missing sync.
Well, sync is some meme that old timers gonna remember.
Just one more thing. Yeah, I think I don't want to change any of the design. I just want to avoid confusion and ambiguity. So if there is a circle that does not tell me anything, and I click it and my wallet opens up and I have no idea what's happening, that is where at least a rollover would be nice, or something that explains the page that explains HDAO or so. And then there are some other little, it's really just little confusing things, which for somebody who comes to the site is first very alien. And like, of course, after 2 days, you know it, and it's kind of like the sync where you are an insider there, so you know it. But yeah, so just tiny things that keep it clean, but fix the confusion.
Yes,
Yeah, I think we
let's
might be
have a
losing a lot
sort
of people along the way.
No, keep the confusion. Keep the confusion.
It depends
have a
what your
sort of
objective is.
hackathon.
Right?
Gatekeeping again, gatekeeping by making it a filter, right? I mean, yeah, so that was...
The ultimate power of HDAO would be to be able to for us to vote on whether we should merge a feature which does something to the design or not, so that we can actually have a community consensus where we grow a community organically and we have community governance. And I think this is very clever that Raphael put this HDAO token in, because eventually we're going to be able to build such a voting mechanism where we can make sure that the community is aligned with changes. So it's and also this is very interesting because it ties into the most interesting aspect of blockchain, is that communities like Hic et Nunc could potentially live on for hundreds of years, and without any core creator governance being present anymore.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that, I mean, if you look at the evolution of other platforms that had this kind of community, if you don't have a code of conduct, if you don't have well-defined core values that protect people, then I'm not 100% convinced that this works, that you have to accept if you have votings and that the majority wants a certain feature, because you still have to propose those features to vote on. That has to come from somewhere. So I think it's very important, and I'm calling it a code of conduct, but I don't know how to call it, that there is some principle behind Hic et Nunc that has to be preserved. It has to be protected.
For sure, and I think there's I think that if you as an potential HDAO owner, I think there could be an aspect of it where you're like, okay, I own HDAO, my HDAO has potentially value in the future, but if I vote on killing the spirit of Hic et Nunc in a way, with some allowing some PR to be merged, then that will devalue potentially the platform which I am invested in. So that's but those are interesting questions. Like, you could also have various Sybil attacks onto these platforms, which is this method of you create a bunch of clone accounts. There are a lot of interesting crypto economic questions that we must ask ourselves as a community to see how this platform will move forward, because it is also becoming a administrative scaling problem in a way.
Well, but it goes further than that. It's a problem of every platform, and there's several people here who haven't talked about yet. And I think it's very important. How can you, from the very beginning, build in values in a platform that makes it inclusive? That's because we know that it's very easy if you open up platforms that this can grow skewed very, very quickly. So how to build this in? What could help us there?
Maybe we should have a little faith. Before Hic et Nunc started, like the swap and stuff, me and my brother, we were in a meeting with Rafael, and we were like, but if anyone can mint anything at any time, probably there will be a lot of bad stuff. Bad things will happen. And as we see, like in a month, of course there were bad situations, but most of it was good. And people were like really excited to be able to share the work and sell and buy other artists' work. So maybe I'm being naive, but since before I was like, bad things will happen, Rafael, we should have like rules and stuff. And he was like, no, it's decentralized. Let's see what happens and we can develop from it. So maybe we should try and see how it goes, and maybe along the way make a little bit of adjustments. And I don't know, shouldn't we trust each other in order to make better things?
Sure, but it
Yeah, so
didn't work that well on many other platforms, so I'm a bit
one
skeptical.
thing that we should do maybe is like there are many actually things that could be developed from here. The UI, the user experience, the interface and the experience, there is something that the main idea is that like it must be simple and responsive. Like if it is loading something, you get the error message, everything. It should be normal. Like we have to intensively look at this experience during the next week or so, to leave it like simple and but for example, how to get how someone how we will get like how we are going to develop something further, like the next smart contracts, or how the interactive views are going to be, and how the events are going to be organized, so uh, so we must distribute these tasks and these thoughts, and for example, one important thing, like for example, Frederick, I was looking his gallery today. He has like I don't know hundred works already. I don't know a lot of. And I was thinking like indeed how we are going to organize it. Like the profiles and stuff. Also, like you can do of course a gallery also, or like layouts for each profile. So we have to think some sort of like a browser for blockchains. Indeed, like some people say this, like how are the visualizations going to happen on blockchains, like a view from a profile, you maybe can be something that you can edit on chain. You can define the pattern that is going to be presented all this information, like in a directory, or so there is this idea like to build directories and stuff. It is a bit computational indeed, the user interface, but it is a basic like interface for me to use it and like adapt it in other contexts. For example, like in a festival, you could easily use the protocol or redeploy it, or fork it. So but the idea, like to have this, to go through the Web3 technologies to develop it further, like um, these interactive tools, search tools that are decentralized. It's really interesting, also. So for this question of discovery, it is an interesting way to go, like to have ontologies reading the ontologies is a graph language. I was thinking, but I don't know if that's the best idea. So it's open for us to think. So you use ontologies to you make categories, right? Ontologies, they have categories, and you divide your. So each one could have like an ontology, or I don't know, for us to develop some search methods that are efficient. Like Wikipedia uses ontologies. So I don't know how big things are gonna get. So, but it is interesting for us to like to experiment with Web3 and people learn about it. Indeed. So indeed, the user interface shouldn't be something that destroys a user experience, but to make the community healthy, and the discovery to keep it healthy, I believe it is important the independent efforts and like of collectives, like of independent artists, and to bring this, to reorganize such ideas, and bring the discovery to other places that I wouldn't expect also, because it is a decentralized protocol.
Yeah.
So, but
I was gonna say one
that...
of the. Go on, sorry.
Please.
No, I was just one of the things that I personally struggle to is like define priorities, because the platform is so open and everybody can come in and chime in and release a feature. So I before this talk, I was looking, oh, when did I join? So and I joined on the 5th of March as a user, and I started contributing code on the 6th, and it hasn't been a month yet. And things that have been growing so fast. So if we initially started with allowing 3D files, so on GitHub there was like a list of things that Rafael would like to want, like minting PDFs or text or 3D objects. We started with the 3D files that was done with like super quick. Then we jumped to SVG. Then we jumped to HTML. In the middle, I've made dark mode that nobody kind of asked, but I wanted to have it. So it's hard as a community to delegate what's priority, because even though it's a lot of us contributing, we aren't doing it like full time. So maybe I have 2 hours a night and I can do something. So I think we need to have those discussions on, okay, what are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing HTML to allow artists to be more creative, expressing themselves, or are we prioritizing some kind of pagination so the site is more usable, or fixing a bug? So those things, I think I normally put them on the shoulders of Rafael to decide what's important. But maybe there should be like a voting system where more people can contribute and weigh in their opinions.
Yeah,
that's an idea. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, you could put a poll on Twitter and obviously ask people on like a monthly basis what features they'd like to be added to the platform in the future, and that would just give you a better sense of like what the community want versus what is essential.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, right? We could just use the voting feature. I mean, then other people will vote, but who cares? But yeah, I wanted to know, like, can we quickly build a usable tool which allows us to get some kind of consensus or opinion? So yeah, using Twitter directly.
There's also things like Canny or similar platforms that let people suggest features and vote on them. And yeah.
So who can take the lead on that? In a way, well, I guess this can be discussed on somewhere, but I think it's exactly this thing. Like it's beautiful that the kind of development just happens, but well, I guess now we get to a point where a lot of things work, and so yeah, as you said, what's the next thing we should work on in the little time that those who have actually the expertise can spend on it?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Finally, you can hear me. I've been sitting here trying to talk the whole time, but anyway, I'll go back to quiet for a minute.
Well, people should really try not to be discouraged from contributing, is something I noticed, because I came in after a while and was just like, oh, I can maybe help doing this, or I can help doing that. And it's really, I mean, as with any open source project, there is a bit of a chaotic process, and so you have to be prepared for that. But I mean, if you know how to code and if you have a little bit of free time, you can probably help build this site into being whatever. I think we all have sort of lean into the same hope for what this community can become and this project. So
like,
contribute.
Like tasks must be totally distributed, for example, Andre and Vector, and we had a group in Discord, and they were like, they worked all week on interactive things. There was like don't worry about other things. Keep doing interactive things, you know. And you can't like there are other fixes, but we have to deal with that. But don't worry, you have to focus on it, and we have to make it better, you know. And like to have the feature in a that people can easily use it. So there are things to also update like documentations on the HTML part, like how to. We are thinking of doing a workshop. I don't know what your thoughts are from like this, how to upload an HTML and code and stuff, SVGs, you know. But like this is like focus must be like distributed, and indeed like there are different. The important thing is to notice that there are different paths, and like and one must follow your path and contribute with others, you know, communicating with others. And but the base yes like smart contracts it is a special something that I tend to go back to myself. So indeed many of the features are open to be developed, and we are open to assist this. Like my idea is indeed, I don't know how the consensus for HDAO could be, for example, how to, for example, distribute funds from the protocol to laboratories. Like there are 3 laboratories: UX, independent studios, and another one for yes, like you know, like other for education, for example, related to coding and blockchain and art. But the idea would be to distribute this voting power in like the how this direction of branches would go. You know, I don't know what your thoughts on it.
I was thinking earlier when I couldn't talk, I don't know why, but when you guys were talking about the remix sort of concepts, like I only recently discovered the collab channel on the Discord, and I thought it was really interesting to see this work go through. You know, I think it's like up to 10 transformations now. And I was wondering, like, is it even possible to, you know, literally add like a collab button when you're minting the artwork, and you can tag somebody else in, and the smart contract automatically splits it between the people that you tag it with. Like, it'd probably get pretty crazy if you had 20 people on there, but as a starting point, maybe you can just split it 50-50 with one other person that you're collabing with. That could be pretty fun. But yeah. Otherwise,
that would also enable this graph that Frederick was sort of hypothesizing, in that you could have like a graph of how things evolve. So in your remixing, yeah. But again, smart contract development is hard. It's yeah. It took me a while to learn Solidity. Now I don't feel like learning Smart Pi, to be honest, which is like the language that makes most sense to me out of the ones you can choose of for Tezos. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't understand any of that stuff. So it's been great tuning into these conversations and hearing brainier people explain it to me. And like, you guys keep talking about DAO and HDAO, and to be honest, I don't even know what that is. So if someone can explain that, it'll be handy too, so I can feel like I'm learning something.
Well, I think a good explainer that could also explain why smart contracts are hard is that the first DAO was something that happened on an old chain that is split from Ethereum as it is now, called the DAO, simply, where someone said, we're gonna make like a big company that is like decentralized, autonomous organization was the idea. And then someone wrote a contract for that. A lot of people put their Ethereum in it, and then there was an exploit that a hacker used to empty the entire contract, because everyone was so naive in smart contract development back then. But the idea is good though, and there's a bunch of systems like Aragon and stuff. And basically what it means is you have like you have some token maybe, or you could have voting rights based on if you can establish some kind of individuality, which is a big problem in crypto economic systems, is that you can't make sure that it's very simple to create like puppet accounts. Just like you can create a bunch of puppet bots on Twitter or whatever to get extra voting rights. So usually what you do is you try to build systems where you vote using a token that maybe depreciates if you make a bad mistake, like you vote on a bad idea. But it's hard. It's hard designing systems like that. But HDAO, I guess, in theory, could be focused on working as the decentralized autonomous organization governing Hic nunc, perhaps.
So it is the basic idea of indeed like how to build an autonomous machine on chain that will live, and how to make the protocol, how to maintain the protocol. So the DAO should care for the protocol, so and decide it's like there is tensions like how we are going to assess the protocol. Like I don't think that Hic needs to be the only portal to assess it. You know, I like to encourage people to get the code and try to. For example, Mario did something these days that you identify your art. You know, so when you sync the wallets there in that case, like for you to interact with the contract, for example, for minting or swapping, is really one step, you know, away. So there are many possibilities that I'd like for people to have in mind. Like it is not a huge like to interact with a smart contract is not a huge technological gap, you know. But the DAO, it is something that we are going to have to work with time. Like the basic idea of it is just for us to govern media, you know, like in a decentralized feed for now. But there are other possibilities. But indeed, I believe it's a creative laboratory regarding UI and also other smart contracts for us to develop.
Can I add into that idea of because you're talking about creative labs? I think we should not oversee, because we are talking, and I think it's a bit common to the crypto world that when we talk about communities, we tend to talk about technology. But what I have seen is that the initiative by Amélie and the diversity NFT initiative is bringing a lot of
I think we lost Frederick.
Attention and a lot of positive energy. So I would definitely. I'm back or not?
You're back.
Okay, excellent. No, so I was saying that we're kind of focusing on the technology side of the community building, but we also, of course, have we have these initiatives that like from Amélie, but also from Taj and Kosha. So I think if you're thinking about building a system of supporting creative labs, definitely think about these kind of social initiatives, because those are the ones that will build a community, and the tech will follow, and the tech will enable them. But it's a necessity, I think.
Can I interrupt with my social initiative just briefly? Shameless plug. I announced this morning to get some people to come along to this talk that I would be releasing 100 free hens. Hen is the name of the character that I just created. And she's now up on Hic et Nunc, so you can go and grab a hen. So if you're tuning in and you're paying attention, it's now your chance to participate. Hooray! That's all. My social announcement is over.
Yeah, I think it's.
I think Amélie had to. Oh, sorry.
For us.
Yeah, no, Amélie had to just drop off, which is a shame because she was just mentioned. But yeah, Taisha, you can.
We have to balance this sense of community also for artists that don't know anything about coding and developing technologies like me. I have a zine background. I used to go to a lot of zine fairs, and I have a small publishing, independent publisher, and that's, I was talking with Amelie, and then we came up with this idea together because I was like, this looks like so much like a zine fair that you can just come talk to an artist and say, oh, I like so much of work. Do you want to trade? And she was like, yes, sure, we should do like a swap weekend. And we came up with the campaign together. And I think it's really important to balance that because, of course, the site structure is very important, but also who is there and cannot have and doesn't have the knowledge, enough knowledge to access like smart contracts, protocols, or maybe don't have much idea of what this word means, and it gets a little bit scared, can also see the other part where it's like, here's a community where anyone can come in and mince their art and show to other people, and maybe someone from the other side of the world would see it and like it. So I think it's very important to balance these two things.
Yeah, I think it might be also just we need better ways to communicate what is happening. I mean, of course, everybody who's on it now is on Twitter, but for example, like I think it would be great if you could like almost create a template or write an article how you did it and like what is there. So for other people who want to start a similar campaign, they can kind of like don't have to make the like have a shallower learning curve than you had, like because as somebody who has more tech background, they might find certain steps totally like easy, but you have now an understanding and know how you understood it. So and then maybe this can grow into something more where other people can add their events, and like the same way the site grows, also the communication part around the site could grow. And maybe there are a few hubs where this is collected, or it is becoming an information feed on the site, right? I guess we could have that included. But yeah, so I guess there's always the thing like the tech people love talking about tech and others that don't. And so I think always everybody who is into something should best kind of promote that or do that, and like of course ask for help. But yeah, I would have difficulties writing up something. So I mean, and for you it's still fresh, so you still know exactly how you did it. I don't know, but I don't want to put all work on you. I just think like if you do it now, you have all the stuff already there, and maybe somebody could help you and put up a website, or we figure out some kind of blog or something, so it doesn't get lost, the knowledge. I always hate like having doing things twice or three times. If somebody already did it, has the knowledge, like somebody else can clone it.
Yeah, I found myself bookmarking PressTube's little tutorial, and then I just like whenever anyone hits me up, I'll just like reshare that same link again and again, and I've done that like a gazillion times now. But yeah, it's definitely handy to have those little links handy. You can send them out. But I think it is like a huge kind of onboarding experience and kind of a little bit daunting, and you're like setting up wallets and it's like imaginary money, but then it's actually real money and you're like, whoa, what's happening here? So I find like I'm with everybody on those conversations. I was like really tripping out the first time like I set mine up, and then I actually was back last year. I was trying to mint my artwork on Super Rare, and then I was talking to Cody at the time, and he was kind of stepping me through the process. And I was like, dude, I don't even have any money in my wallet, and it's asking me for like $20 right now. And he's like, oh, one second, let me send you some. And so he had to give me my first little bit of money so I could mint my artwork. And then it was up, and then there was another fee, and I was like, dude, I don't have money to accept the bid on the artwork. And I was like, someone's gonna buy it. And I was like, I don't even have money to accept it. And then he sent me some more money. So it was like such a strange experience. But at least like the gas fees are like 0.001% on Tezos, and there's like that Tezos faucet as well. Like that was another cool thing to learn about, so people can, you know, set up with a little drip from the Tezos faucet, so that they can start putting some artwork up there. And once they've sold a few artworks, then they're off and running, sort of thing, which is super cool. But I totally agree with the Zine Fest vibe of this platform. I think it's so cool, and I've been having conversations with people obviously in Brasilia and the Philippines and Indonesia, and just like discovering artists from all around the planet now, and like unique cultural backgrounds, is like bringing like some fresh perspective on like art that, you know, just haven't had exposure to a lot of the time. So I think that kind of discovery element is what's really beautiful about this space.
Yeah, but I think if we're talking about tutorials, and I think what Mario was talking about is it's going beyond helping the individual user get on the platform. I'm very interested in the initiative that Agent Kosha did with actually having a decentralized exhibition using Hic and Nunc as a platform to host and to take care of the sales and things like that. That is a huge capability, to be able as a local organization to organize a kind of meeting and or exhibition, to curate something, to invite people, to help them on the platform, and also automatically have a mechanism where they can sell their work, because that's always a big problem. And so it would be very interesting to have a kind of manual to organize these kind of events. So how, Thijs and Kosha, how did you get access to this? How did you that? You told us how you made the website. So those kind of things beyond the individual user or collector or artist. So there's a lot of growth potential in there.
It's really a good suggestion to make some kind of memorial and maybe like a tutorial saying how we made it and how other people also can do. We set up for objects website also in hotglue.me, because my brother told me, he showed me, and I was like, this is really easy, I can do it. So I did it one where people can see like the objects that are listed, also fill up a form where they can put their objects to the list. Now we have a report where people can report like multiple collectors, and also a form for suggestions. And I think maybe for next week, when this is over and I have a little bit of more time, we can make this material. And I'll also encourage my brother to make about the exhibition.
Yeah, it was easy. Like I used Google Forms and hotglue.me. It was like the Google Forms. It was about the internal organization, and the hot glue, it was the template. I saw an glyph art exhibition on my friend Ju sent me, and I like it so much. It was this template that you go horizontally, like you seeing a big wall with the arts, and I just copied, and we made the Pupila Dilatada Art Show. And I think it's about showing people that it's easy to decentralize the thing. Like, and I think like you guys were talking about like UX and UI implementations, and and I think that's great. That has to be done. Like there's a lot of little stuff that is missing, but I thought it's just an idea. I don't know if I can help with that, like in the coding, but we could make like Reddit. You can choose your template to use Reddit. So maybe you can choose your template to use Hic et Nunc. Like, and template looks like Rarible, a template looks like Zora, a template looks like I don't know, Trade Market. Don't know. and people can decentralize this kind of designs, and we can like use the API from Hicket's nunc to access those data the way people make and want to see it.
Crypto guerrilla tutorials for crypto art, how to create your own festival, your crypto art festival. But yes, like the idea is indeed, for example, the website will support many of these features, like layouts for collections, like different works which has different themes you want to organize in a, or what Suto mentioned about collaborative work and have shares for different persons in a collab. It is an interesting feature, like because it's something that I have not seen implemented actually in a public way, But yes, the tools that are available, like the API, already allows actually people to build it. Of course, it will be like be presented as an SDK and as a we can help like to make these templates easy, but in the meanwhile many of you have been seeing this being constructed, so the thing is to continue building and experimenting, like in the way that you feel comfortable in experimenting, and contributing.
Okay. So I think that for this week, we've spoken about a lot of topics. I think these will be like weekly appointments. So I guess, we can keep talking about this stuff and more, and kind of like build on what has been discussed today, and even maybe like ask, questions in advance to, people from the community of what they want to know and what they would like to be discussed in these sort of calls, which maybe might be super useful for you guys, for us, and also for the people that are watching and listening. So like for today, thank you all so much for taking the time and for chatting. I think there's so many topics that are being discussed. It's really exciting to be part of these talks and like building and sharing together. So let's keep it rolling, and we'll discuss more and chat more next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Have a